Hey everybody! Sorry to do my little intro, but it's Let's Chat on Sunday day, and it's nice to be back with you after taking last week off. I went to lunch with my cousin who was here from Washington, and my sister and Adam, of course. And we went walking around. We went to lunch. It was super fun. So. I wanted to open today to just talk a little bit. Well, first of all, if you're new, this show is this kind of a spiritually centered show. We talk about spiritual things, and you can ask questions. And if I know the answer, I'm happy to answer myself if I know. But if not, I hand over to my guides and ask them to weigh in. And it's usually where we tackle kind of, spiritual questions, some bigger world questions and things like that. Of course, just things we're curious about. And just pulling up my dowsing rods really loudly, sorry. And if you ask a personal question, I'll probably kind of make it more for the collective rather than keep it personal. So, but that's the way we do it. So. Anyway, I wanted to start kind of open Sunday today to talk a little bit about a tool that is available to everybody, and it's a very powerful tool. But it's the tool of fasting and of praying and fasting and praying. It's funny because, so I'm in the middle of a fast I'm doing for Gaza. For me, fasting has always kind of been about a last resort in a way. And it's very personal, why you fast and pray and how you fast and pray as well. I'm doing it because I didn't know what else to do, right? And for me, it's always to put emphasis on something. I really want to answer sorry, to this question. And hang on one second. I really want an answer to this question, and I'm going to meditate and I'm going to fast at the same time to put emphasis on the fact that I really, really want an answer, right? It's showing to me, it always kind of shows a dedication and a seriousness to really wanting an answer or wanting to know. And for this, we're in a position where we're kind of watching something happening, and you can't really even send money because they're like destroying the food. I mean, it's just a weird situation that I thought, what can I do? And in also fasting in this situation, it shows a type of solidarity as well, right? And fasting, for those who are interested in doing it, I thought I would pull up some things that actually Edgar Cayce said about fasting, because he was a huge believer in fasting. And in fact, one of his predictions was that one day science would recognize it wouldn't just be a religious thing, that science would recognize how important and how effective fasting was for people. And now we know they're doing, all of the time you're hearing about intermittent fasting and how important it is to let your body recover, and how it, can restore things in the body and give mental clarity and all these things, right? So he was absolutely right. But he said in many readings that it can open your mind to the divine. He said it was a psychic channel to fast and to pray. It was like opening a psychic channel. He said it could prevent or break up possible physical addictions. And he talked about it as sort of a way of sort of symbolically detaching from the material world or the third dimension. For me, I feel like it can give you a clarity of meaning and purpose, right? Because as you fast for something, you mix that with sort of meditation and think and kind of having it on your mind, on your heart. You know, you're sort of it's a different type of dedication. Hunger, the feeling hungry too, can also help you to be very present. And I think that with Edgar Casey, I think that was part of that kind of how it links to the divine. Because if we're going to the, Eckhart Tolle, which you can drink your mimosa if you're lucky enough to be having a mimosa right now. But that his thing is that the present, being present, is the channel to the divine. It opens a channel, and feeling hunger and being in a state of sacrifice, that it really does make you present. And I think that's part of it as well. And it is a spiritual, it's spiritual because it's a symbol of transcending the physical, right? He also said that Edgar Casey also said that it helped the divine to flow unobstructed, right? It's very interesting. But he was a huge proponent of, and I think he used to like weekly do like apple fasts or something. Maybe somebody knows about that. Like I remember it was just like he just ate apples or something, but he was a huge proponent of fasting. Now, fasting is also, and Edgar Casey also talked about it, how it is linked. So I'm just going to plug in my computer. How it is also linked to Jesus. We usually think of Jesus when we think of fasting and praying and that kind of thing. And he often, Jesus would often, if not maybe always, I don't know, would move into solitude to fast and pray before decisions, before a battle, before a revelation. That's what he did. And if you want to use this practice, if you don't know what it is or how to do it, or like, well, how is it done properly or whatever, basically what it is, and you can decide what the fast is. For me, it's food. That I'm just off food, and I don't know how long it's going to be, right? It's not, usually when you think of fasting too, you think of like Gandhi. You don't have to do it to extremes. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a very concentrated effort to show a dedication to something, or to show an intention for something. So to do a fast, you would open the fast with a prayer, stating your intention. I'm fasting. I'm opening this fast, and I'm doing this fast to try to bring help to Ukraine. Or it can be, I want to, I've been disconnected from my guides for a year, and I want to show that I am in this and I'm dedicated, and I need to have connection with my guides again to be able to feel it. And I'm going to fast for that purpose. It can be for personal reasons. It can be for bigger reasons. But setting that intention as to why you're doing this. And it really can be for anything. It's very personal. And then you state what the fast will be. I'm giving up food, or I'm giving up food, I'm just drinking water or whatever. And then you end the fast with a prayer. You say, I'm ending, basically declaring I'm ending the fast now. I also think that, there's something to this about it also being a way of sort of declaring to the universe, or declaring to the spirit realm, I'm doing my part in this co-creation of this thing that I would like to have happen. I'm putting skin in the game, right? I'm doing something. I'm showing how serious I am, or I'm showing how dedicated I am, or I'm showing how much this means to me, right? So we're all with the divine. And I feel like it kicks open that door in a way. Um, anyway, it's very effective. And I just thought this would be a good time to talk about it, as I'm kind of in the middle of one. Um, and it's an amazing tool. People use it for healing. People use it for all kinds of things. But it's usually for something that you're really, really seeking help for. And like I said, it kind of kicks that door open of, I'm in this, I'm in it, or, and I'm meeting you halfway because I'm doing something too. Anyway, okay, so that's just something to think about. Yes, yeah. In fact, again, Edgar Casey talked about that too, that fasting as a group was incredibly effective. In fact, during wartime, during the Depression, families would get together to fast for other families, and there were all kinds of stories and things. I have a story of my own, and I'll keep the and then we'll go to the questions, but I'll keep the names out of it, even though this happened like in the late 80s. But I was going to a new, I had just moved and was going to a new church. It was when I was in the church. Obviously, it was late 80s, so I was, my late teens. And I got to this new church, and this woman, I saw a bunch of people around this woman, and my sister already went there. So I was like, what's with that? What's going on? What's happening? And they were like all hugging and crying and stuff. And I was like, what is going on? And she said, that's such an interesting story. That woman, and she was probably, now that I think about it, she's probably my age. She's probably around 60, probably maybe in her 60s. That woman is, whatever, sister, we called each other sister and brother, Sister Johnson. And she, her granddaughter was kidnapped. And and it was by a stranger, just like off the street. And so her granddaughter was kidnapped. And she has been fasting and praying since the abduction, and they just found her. And this was I get chills still when I think about this story, because it was such an unusual rescue, in that it had taken about, I think, a couple of weeks to find her. And it was sort of after that, 72-hour kind of period where they usually say after that, it's like, it can be very, very unlikely to find them alive. And she was just very faithful, and she fasted and prayed the entire time and wasn't going to stop until till they got her home safe. And the search for her, particularly because it kind of was a church thing. It happened in Utah. So it was a huge church search. And the search was so fast and so intense that the man that had the little girl ended up just letting her go. Inexplicably, right? Because that's very, very unusual. And but that's just one story. And there's, if you start looking online, and there's so many stories about fasting and praying. But yes, so fasting and praying as a group, yes, it intensifies the result. Yeah. The other thing about, something like that, like online, it can blur the lines, because you don't know people's like physical stuff. And if that's why it has to be kind of a personal decision. And it also needs to be a personal decision in what you give up. Some people, they're so addicted to sugar that giving up sugar is really a sacrifice, so if they say I'm giving up sugar for a week, they mean business, right? So it can be very, very personal in that way. More like Lent, I guess that's kind of what happens during Lent. But fasting it's a powerful tool. It really, really is. And I don't use it all the time. I only use it when I really, really, really don't know what else to do. And that's what I fall into growing up in the church. That's just kind of what I do. So anyway, I hope that's helpful to people, and helpful if you're feeling stuck, or because it's a great way to kind of get going in something again. If you feel stuck in what else can I do, that kind of thing, that's a great way to, get unstuck. Okay, so let me get my glasses. Okay. Barbara D. 222. When we communicate with others via our pendulums, how do we know if the information is accurate or if our subconscious self is moving it? Okay. Okay, I'm already getting something with this. Let me just, I didn't sharpen my pencil. Let me do that real quick. This is such a professional show. So, yeah, I can already tell where they're going with this, but I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to the guys and see what they say. So they're saying, this is, it's kind of like any other way you would connect, in that you would try it out, you would see. And the one thing I felt like they were emphasizing, that's why I wanted to go to them, is because they're talking about the subconscious being connected to your higher self and to the divine. That's how Dolores Cannon, quantum healing, that goes into your subconscious. That's what that is. So it's you kind of unlock things that are there, like soul memory in a way, right? But I feel like they're kind of like, don't get hung up on that. Don't get hung up on that. The most important thing is your intention for the session, also your connection to your tool. So using it often and trusting it. So trust is part of it. It's actually part of the process in forging that connection with your tool, right? So it's kind of like, it's all part of it. But don't really get hung up on which is it my subconscious, or is it my higher self, or is it my guides, or is it my angel? Try not to get hung up on that, because that's more in the mind. It brings you to the mind. And really what you want to do is just be open and have a deep connection with your tool. Okay. So hopefully that answers that, and try things out, ask sort of maybe more kind of, because I would say, a lot of times people use their tools when they're in dire straits, or they'll decide to use meditation to contact their guides when something has gone horribly wrong with something, and they're in crisis. And that's why it's so important to build these relationships with our tools, with our guides, with different forms of connection when we're not in crisis, right? That's why they said in the beginning of the year readings, checking in every day, that consistency will help, so that when you do have something happen, you already have forged that connection. You already have that connection. It won't be part of it. You'll already trust your guides. You'll already have that connection going. So setting that intention, and that trust, and then doing it when you're not in crisis. So pendulum, will it rain tomorrow, or whatever, will it rain tomorrow? Will I see a blue car today? Will I, whatever, but giving yourself and setting that intention. I'm doing this to build trust and understanding of my tool, of understanding of the pendulum, and to build a relationship with the pendulum, and to have fun in this work, or whatever, whatever your intention is. But they just need to know what your intention is, right? They just need to know that, because they can better serve you, yeah. So, okay. So I hope that helps. So Bonnie Russell, so who will be president in 2026? I don't really want to say what I think is going to happen, but I don't. It's weird because I'm getting a feeling of that. So, and it's not a political show, but they're showing like Humpty Dumpty, you know who I mean, Humpty Dumpty is not, even right now, he's only in that seat in name only. Like he's not really doing that. He's not making decisions, and he's not really doing the stuff we're seeing him do. He's the face of it, and he yaps about it, goes out and is the face of it, and keeps the base in line and things like that. But he's not really the he's not really the person making decisions, and he's signing stuff, but he doesn't even know what he's signing. So in 2026, I feel like either he'll still kind of be there, but I more feel he may be gone. And so I do think there will be a Vance, like for not a very long time, but it will kind of be there. Yeah, he just doesn't have the same hold over the base that Humpty Dumpty does. So that's what I got. So I hope that, and we'll, as we get closer, I'm thinking of doing, and tell me how you feel about this, you guys, because I'm thinking of doing, I was talking to Cassie and said, I still get messages. I haven't stopped getting messages about everything, all the time, even movies we watch. I get like the ending and stuff. It's so weird. It's so weird, but I haven't stopped getting information. And so would you want me to do sort of like I did in the beginning of the channel, where I sort of take maybe a question or two and do just like a quick read on them, like a 5 or 10 minute kind of political thing? I think one reason that Thursday Night Live got very taxing and very difficult was because I never knew what energies I would be going into. And it was also an hour is quite long to do, for me, to do, be going into those heavier energies, and not, you can't really put a bubble around you when you do this, when these kind of reads, because you have to kind of go into people's energy and that kind of thing. And so it would lay me out sometimes, as an empath, or it would affect my mood and stuff. So that's kind of why I just felt like there had to be a shift and a kind of a change. I also feel like people need a break from all that stuff. But let me know if you would like that, like just tackling like maybe the bigger questions that are in the news, like the E stuff, the EP stuff, or like, things like that may come up, because I can do it how I used to do it, where I sort of go into meditation kind of off screen. That way I can do a more, I know what I'm going into, I know what I need, I can take as long as I need, and then I can deliver the information to you in kind of a shorter form. So it would be 5 or 10 minutes, and just answering these key questions. And you send questions, of course, but anyway, if you think you'd like that, let me know. Let me know. If you're like, no, we don't want any of that, that's fine too. But I do still get information. So I just feel like if you want me to share it, I'm not, I'm fine doing that. It's not out of fear or out of anything else, except that I just didn't think it was good for me to be in that kind of spontaneously for that long. And yeah, so, okay. Okay. Michelle has a question. May I be a little selfish and ask for a personal message from my mom, Nancy? Tighter for my dad, Charles. Yeah. So, Michelle, I unfortunately, I'm not going to, because then everybody or people might feel bad because they can't do that, and I would feel bad. So, but what I will tell you, Michelle, is that you can connect with them. You really can. And I do feel like both of them are in like the astral plane, like they're waiting for their family. They're waiting for everyone to get there. They're not going anywhere. And the astral plane is huge. It's not this tiny little thing where they're right up close. But understand too that astral plane is right on top of the earth plane. So there are a lot of ways you can connect with your mom and dad, particularly if they're in the astral plane. Because they're probably checking in on you all the time. And when you think about them, or when you have a family gathering, or you're just talking about them, they show up. They're a part of their consciousness shows up. That part of them that was that person shows up. It's like a bat signal, right? So they're there. I always think it's nice to set aside a time of day where you invite them in and just connect. And when you do this, pay attention to the thoughts that come in, one exercise you can do, which I did a lot when I did mentoring. I would do this one a lot. You can put up a picture of them, or you can just invite them in. Say you do it every morning when you have coffee. I invite my mom and dad in, and we just sit there and chat. And you'll feel weird at first because it's like you're talking to yourself, but talk to yourself and pause and ask yourself, what do I think their response would be? So maybe I say, I'm really excited about my new job. What do you guys think about that? And then pause and ask yourself, what would they say? What do I think they would say? So it's almost like you're trying to tune into them, that vibration, their vibration with that question. You're also setting yourself up to be able to hear in your mind's ear or see in your mind's eye their response, right? So leaving that space between either just talking, just dialoguing, or asking a question, right? It's a really great exercise, and it really does get your mediumship kind of juices flowing in a way that's very fun, very, very, very earthly. It's something you can do that that's very earthly, and it starts that connection. You can ask for physical signs from them. You can do orb work if you want to. It's very easy to do. I have a little class on it that's inexpensive, and it's on it's on the website. You can start doing orb work with them. Bringing in, have them sending in orbs to you. But there's lots of ways for you to connect, right? And so, I do feel like they're in the astral plane. It's a little harder when they're not there anymore. Not for mediums necessarily, because they're just more sensitive. They've built up their sensitivity, which anybody can do. But for just family members and stuff, it's so much easier when they're in the astral plane and they're kind of waiting for you. That's weird. That light behind me it was white and now it's like rainbowy. It's weird. Anyway, yeah, so there you go. All right. And I'm sorry for your loss of your parents. I know what that is like. It's not easy to be without both your parents. So yeah, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you asked that question. Okay. So channelers tell us about an imminent split in the human race as we shift to ascend into a higher dimension, with the actual percentage of those being left behind offering. Okay. So Melody, yeah, I've talked about this, a few times in different ways, but what I will say is this: when I ask my guides about this, they basically talk about in not this past year, but the year before, for my year predictions, they talked about the fact that there was going to begin like no question anymore about, because there for a long time, the Republican Party was sort of like, and I hate to use that because there's several splits right in the country right now, but a couple prominent ones are the working class and the very, very rich, and also sort of Republican and Democrats, because we're right now we're a two-party system, so we see that split as well. For a long time, the Republican Party, like, we're compassionate, we care about children, we care about these things, and doing other things behind the scenes that were like the opposite of that. But they always held that position of like, oh no, he really cares. In that reading, they said that was not going to be a thing anymore. And look where we are, right? That it was going to become more and more and more obvious who they really are, who some of the people in our country are, who they really are. And in the world too. It's happening all around the world. People are just coming out and being a dictator now, coming out and just taking over countries. And there's not a question anymore of who is sort of for the earth plane, in the 3D, kind of locked into ego and the 3D. And I like to talk about it as kind of like ego and consciousness, or asleep and awake. That makes more sense to me. But it's people basically locked into this idea of money and power, and there's not enough stuff, and I got to get all my stuff. So very more selfish, self-centered, not very compassionate, not empathetic, about kind of hoarding for themselves, not sharing. And then there's another section that is for helping people, sharing with others, being kind, having compassion and empathy for people, wanting to be cooperative, right? This also is talking about the earth, right? Wanting to help the earth and cooperate to fix the earth. And another group is like, let's burn it to the ground. We don't care. We just want money, right? So it's becoming more and more and more obvious. And people are picking where they stand, but they're able to see it clearly. Because that was the thing before, is that we couldn't see it clearly because it was being hidden. Everything, like I said at the beginning of this year's predictions, everything's coming to the surface. Everything's coming out. We're going to know exactly who people are, what they do, what they're into, what they like, what they don't like. It's going to be all out there. And that is happening, right? So we're, to me, I've always felt like we're in the middle of the split. We're in the middle of what my guides have called since 2018, the unearthing. Everything coming out to show us, to say, here, what do you think, this or this? And then that choice of, oh my gosh, I don't want that. I'm going to help over here. I'm going to say as Eckhart Tolle would say, a high quality no to this, right? And I'm going to do it in a way that doesn't involve ego. When you complain in trying to change something, in the service of change, it's not ego-based. It's not. And so I'm going to attend protests and say no to this or whatever. So this is happening right now, and it's happening all over the world. You're seeing people rising up, governments being shut down, things, people making their voices heard. And it's all part of this big split, right? And it's just a matter of where, and to take the sinisterness out of it or the evil stuff out of it, it's where people are in their consciousness. That's all it is. And what's happening is that the earth is trying to kind of ascend in vibration. So when you make that choice and you're kind of like, oh, I'm going to ascend as well. I'm going to be more compassionate. I'm going to be more loving. I'm going to be more helpful, more cooperative. then you will be ascending into that vibration with the earth plane. And this over here, they'll just be locked into that. That's all that's going to be happening. And they're going to, and it, to me, it almost feels like we'll still be sharing the same space in a way, but we won't be as aware. First of all, I think it will shrink down so that it's not as like loud and impactful and all that stuff. But it will just not be as, it will be like two different earths. It will be. Right now, we're very much in the middle of the split, so we're very aware of both this and that. But as we ascend, it's almost like it won't really touch our reality in the same way, right? So it's a shift in consciousness is really what it is, and that's everything. That really is everything. So left behind, not it, and I don't see it as like a physical split of the earth. I see it as a consciousness shift, a vibrational shift, right? Just like someone, let's take just for an example, and it's kind of a crude example, but it's the only one that I think kind of explains this. Think about like someone who descends into the world of drugs, right? Say they're a happy family person and they get into becoming a drug addict, right? In that lower vibrational activity, they get drawn into other low vibrational stuff, like the whole drug scene and the drug dealers and the danger of that. And maybe they get pulled into like a violent, kind of more violence and stuff. So it's this dragging down, right? As their vibration lowers and they get into these more lower and lower vibrational places. But at the same time, somebody else who is, whatever, they're very loving and they're with their family and they're not involved in that at all. They're living a complete other life. They're not even aware of that's happening, right? It's not part of their world. They have no idea about it. And that's what I feel like will be kind of happening. So they'll still be doing whatever they're doing to each other, right? Because everyone else will have pulled out of that and be living at a different vibrational frequency, right? So that's the way I see it. And that's kind of the way it's been explained to me. So I guess you could say vibrationally, it will be two earths. We already have that, as I explained with the astral plane, that it's right on top of us, is right here. It's not somewhere else. It's just at a different frequency level. So I hope that explains that. But that's the way I see it. And that's why it's like they're not really left behind. They're just left to be in that vibration because that's where they are. As they wake up and say, oh, this is horrible. This is awful. I'm going to clean up my act. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to whatever, serve my jail time or whatever. And they awaken into and start to move into that higher vibration. They'll come around too. It's not like they have to do it right now, but what's happening is that the earth is ready because we don't want the earth to be destroyed, basically. So the earth is ready and we're on the earth. And so we're all doing it together. Okay. So I hope that explains that. Okay, the eclipse. Can somebody tell me, is it like a moon something or like, is this like the, I kept seeing it online. I didn't look up what it was, but like is it the blood moon? Is that what this is? Is that what it's called? Or is that something else? If anybody can just tell me what the eclipse is or what it's called, just so I can ask about it. Because I don't know. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know. I've got to hand it off to my guides. Lunar eclipse tonight, solar and later tonight. It's the blue corn moon. Okay. Lunar Lunar moon. Okay. 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 Right. So I'm feeling like it's very powerful. It's actually a very powerful thing. And it actually kind of goes along with kind of what we were just talking about, because I feel like it's a lot of people may be having like awakenings, like realizations, changes in perception, like seeing things differently. Um, I even think of like things like people realizing that Humpty Dumpty's a liar. You know, things like that. Like it's kind of like it's a it's a it's almost like a yeah, to me it feels like it's like it awakens, but it's like a or it can awaken people or change perception or change viewpoints or to me it even feels like somebody who like say they haven't talked to their mom in 10 years, they might have a different feeling about it, that it will kind of like maybe I'll call my mom today, just like out of the blue. It's almost like end of delusions. Yeah, maybe that's what it is, because it feels like just a way like, and it feels like it's powerful. So even people that have been in a certain place for a long time are almost thrust out of it or pulled out of it. But I feel like it's kind of like a really powerful thing. And you may have it for a person that's already kind of awakened and a little more enlightened, that maybe for them it might be just a different way of seeing something or seeing someone, maybe someone that you couldn't find compassion for, all of a sudden you can find compassion for them, right? So, but that's what it feels like is that's what it can, and of course, it's going to be people that are kind of in a position for that to happen, or some way aligned with that happening for them now, that it can just like push them over the edge. So yeah, powerful though. Okay. So how do we know when our guides and loved ones might be around us? I often call in my guides and angels and loved ones as I am on my morning walks. So maybe this is a spoiler alert. I don't know, Sue. You're never alone. You're never alone. Your guides can kind of shift and change and move. I always feel like I have a lot of, when I do my show on Thursday, the mediumship show, I feel like I'm surrounded. I feel like my guides and angels are right here. I feel like the people I'm talking to are right here. And I use my dowsing rods to ask where everybody is, just so I have like a kind of a mental picture of where people are, where they're standing. So I don't always get that. I get my strongest ability is my empath ability. So I feel a lot of things, but having that mental picture really can really help. But when it comes to loved ones, that's a little bit different. 99.9% of the time, if you ask someone to come in, they're going to come in. They just are. Even just like talking about them or thinking about them in a really happy, positive way is like a bat signal. If it's in a grieving way, they may still show up, but you're less likely to feel them there because you're in a lower vibrational state. Grief is lower vibrational. And when you're sad and you're feeling bad, you're just less likely, and it seems unfair, right? Because it's like that's when you need people the most. That's when but it also is part of what we're here to experience, is that feeling of being alone and that feeling of being Even though it's not true. Like it's an illusion, but it is what we're here to experience, is that idea or the feeling of being alone. I'm locked into my five senses and I don't see anybody here and I don't hear anybody here, so I must be alone, right? But that isn't the way it works at all. And so what I'm basically saying is that if you ask someone to come in, they're going to come in, right? And then it's up to you to again, it's all about building trust. And so if I say, I really want my mom to come in, I really need to talk to my mom, and then give it a minute, and then I assume she's there. And sometimes you'll get chills, you'll start to get little things as you move into that trust and that knowing, and just moving into it with all the confidence in the world of like, okay, she's here now. Mom, I got to tell you this, blah, 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 blah. You might get an impression in your mind of what she looks like or what she's saying back to you. You might get a feeling, might get chills, but we're never alone. Things may shift, like I said, in different times. Like if you're going to Target, you may not need your whole team with you, right? You might have a few your key members like with you or whatever, and it's not really like with you in the sense that we think of with you, like standing right here. It's an attention. They're putting attention towards you, right? I think of it as like the like the baby monitor. when you have a new baby and you have the baby monitor, you're not in the room, but you have the awareness of it. It's that connection, that awareness of it. We think of everything as so literal and like physical, and like they have to be standing right next to you. That's just not the way it is. They're aware of you. Their attention is towards you. So time doesn't really pass in maybe when you go from I don't need my guides too much to I really need them right now. It's not even, there's no time that passes in that shift in we're aware of you and we're with you, right? We're right here. So you understand what I'm saying, right? It's just a little bit different. And so as soon as you ask for your mom, her awareness shifts and it's with you, it's to you. And so she's with you. It really is that easy, but it's us. It's our trust needs to be there. Our belief and our knowing needs to be there. And as we move into that trust, okay, I believe my mom's here. Okay, mom, let me talk to you. As you move into that and you start just trusting, you will start to get validation. As I've said before, it's the opposite with spirit world. You heard me say this a million times, but it's worth saying if somebody has not heard it, because it's the truth. In the physical world, we get evidence and then we believe it. We get evidence and then we trust it. In the spirit realm, when you're working with the spirit realm, it is the opposite. You trust first and then you get validation. You trust first and then you get evidence. Okay? So I hope that helps. They're with you. They are with you. Yeah. Okay. The age-old question, Prince Charming's mom. How does one learn to distinguish your guides from your own voice? I'm going to see what my guides say, but I'm going to give an exercise to you guys that I used to give when I was mentoring. Maybe I should do some mentoring again. Maybe this is what this is telling me. Go back to doing some mentoring. Yeah, they're kind of saying what I kind of felt like they would probably say, which is that it really, it can be difficult because it is in your own voice, right? When your guides are with you from day one, and they are talking to you from day one. They're connecting with you from day one. So it's a little like saying, what does air feel like? what is air? How do you know air is around? Well, because it's always been around. So it's like, it's hard to, it's like, I don't know, it's just there. That's the same thing, because we've never known our lives without them, right? And when we hear them, it is in our own voice. What I would say, one distinction is that they never work in fear. And I think that's a big thing, because a lot of people turn to their guides when they're in a fearful experience or they're having a doubt or something. If it's something fearful, like I'm scared this is going to happen, or I keep thinking, my plane's going to go down or whatever, that is not your guides. That's your ego. That's your ego trying to keep you safe. That's your ego trying to remind you of all the horrible things can happen to pretend to keep you safe. That's the ego. Your guides are very logical and very direct. So I've used this example as well. If you have a likelihood of getting in a car accident, when you get into the car, you might hear, or you might feel this, I have to buckle my seatbelt and I have to make sure it's good today. You just feel it. It just comes over you. Or you might hear, buckle up. And then you think, oh, I miss them. They're not going to be like, oh my God, don't get in the car today. It's every, they're not going to do that. Okay. And they're not going to give you pictures of car crashes. That's just not how they work. How your own guides work with you. They might give you something like that for maybe someone else or something, but even then it's usually not fearful. It's usually just kind of a knowing, or kind of a, oh, that's weird, I'm thinking of that. Or it doesn't come across as making you, so anything that makes you afraid, that's not your guides. Just, that's a good way to know that, okay? And it's usually when we're reaching out, is because there's something happening or something going on. So know that if it's fearful, it's not your guides. Usually your guides come in with a calm, a peace, and a logic to it. And also, that can be a little surprising. So they may not give you exactly what you were expecting, and that's a good way to know it's different than you. But here's an exercise you can do. Get a pen and a piece of paper, and you're going to ask yourself, what do I think my guides want me to know? Or what do I think my guides would tell me? And then just start writing. Write everything that comes into your head. And the reason you want to say, what do I think, is because it sort of allows you to let go of the idea of keeping track of your own imagination. You want to be completely open. And if you say, what do I think they would say, it kind of lets you off the hook, and knowing that things are going to come from my brain, right? Because that is the way it is. It comes through you, right? And so you want to get that out of the way. Am I thinking that, or is that them? You want to get rid of all that. And so what do I think? Just play. What do I think they would say to me? And then just start writing every single thing that comes to your mind. Close up the letter, put it aside, go do something else for a little while, come back and pretend that your guides left you a letter. Okay? And then when you open it, pretend that you're reading it for the first time. What a surprise, they left me a letter, let me read it. And what will happen is, as you read, certain things might give you chills. You might get emotional at certain lines. You might feel certain lines deeply. And that's when you know that those things are your guides. The other stuff that doesn't evoke anything, or is kind of like neutral, it feels neutral. And this is a feeling-based kind of exercise, right? It's gonna, you really work with your emotions through this. So if you're an empath, this works really, really well. But so you'll know that, oh, this stuff is from my guides, and this stuff was just my mind. And it's okay. It overlaps sometimes, because, and they know that too. That's why they'll get louder, They'll start telling you things subtly, which is how they usually work. And then they might go to a physical thing, a billboard, or something popping up on your phone, or something. They'll get to you somehow, or through another person, right, who's more reachable. Your friend comes and says the exact thing you wanted to know or you wanted to hear. That's them, right? They're subtle. They're super, super subtle. But what that exercise does is it helps you to go back and say, okay, well, what did I feel when I was writing this? And what did I feel when I wrote that line? And how did it feel? How is it different? It'll help. It's kind of like a detective. It's determining your own way of being able to differentiate. Okay, so hopefully that gives you some ideas, but also how they work, right? How to recognize it a little bit better. Mm-hmm. Oh, so Sue says, I've been doing intermittent fasting for my health. Yeah. When I was reading about Edgar Cayce, that was one of his a lot of times he would give people fasting things for certain ailments to reset the body, for depression, even things like that. So yeah, that was a big thing for health, because he was pretty much a health medium. That's what kind of mostly what he did. Okay. Let me hit this one. Do evil or dangerous spirits or beings actually exist? So they're saying, I'm going to put it exactly how they said it, because I think it's important with this subject. They said not in the way it's depicted in like movies and things like that. What you have are spirits that okay, so spirits, just like people, everything is sort of determined by intention. And some spirits can have certain intentions that can still be based in a lifetime they just had. So they're saying that, so the way I'm understanding this is that, and they're also saying that that every spirit has also a unique personality, just like people. So what you may have is, let's say you have a spirit. I'm sorry, I work at examples if you don't know this, because that's how I understand this. So I always use examples. And sometimes I feel like it can make more sense than just explaining the concept or explaining the thing. So, so let's say you have a religious man who was kind of mean to his family and drank a lot of alcohol, but he was God-fearing and believed in hell. Let's say that. And this person unexpectedly dies. Because they're still in this in kind of a deep awareness of that life, and they might be really fearful of, they might see the white light or they might see the thing, but they're very fearful of what may be beyond this, and they also may believe that they would go to hell because they so there may be this sort of their intention may be to stay, and to stay as long as they can, because they want to put off going to hell, right? So they want to stay. So their intention might be to stay and sort of work through some of the stuff that they needed to work through but didn't. And so they're revisiting, sort of, they're going back to the house where a lot of the abuse took place. And they're sort of working through it and kind of remembering it and kind of working through maybe some guilt feelings or sadness about it. And maybe there's some anger at themselves there, but their guides are always present, just so you know that. Their guides are there. They may not perceive them because they may be kind of stuck a little bit. And I don't mean stuck here like they'll never get unstuck. Not like that. It's a self-imposed concentration, a self-imposed limitation. Now, how the living might perceive it is maybe people that live in that house, they see a guy walking around all the time that looks distressed or whatever, right? So, because I think what they're explaining to us is ghosts, basically. So, and maybe he's upset and angry, and maybe he's trying to figure things out, and he keeps running across these people. And it's like, get out of here. I'm trying to figure this out, and I'm scared to go to hell, and I don't want to. So they have to work through stuff, right? And so okay. And they're saying too that they may draw from people to try to help themselves. They might ask people for help or be drawn to their energy because maybe they really have a really lighted energy, or they're medium, and they need help. They want help in their situation because they're afraid. They don't know what to do. They're locked in still to this life. Now, usually people aren't. That's not really a thing that happens all the time. It really isn't. But they're saying, like, you can have these cases of people being still very locked into their life and afraid to move on. And that's just one example. But what they're basically saying is that there are people who have had their spirits who have had a life here that was that they're still plugged into for some reason, and there can be a lot of reasons why. And so they kind of stick around to try and resolve it, figure it out, work through it, whatever. And they have personalities. And if they're still very locked into that person, maybe they were a very angry person, so then maybe they're feeling some of that anger still, or maybe they're a very, a mean person, so they're kind of locked into that meanness for a little while. But their guides are there, and it doesn't go on forever. It doesn't go on forever. It goes on for a period of time until they're kind of like, oh yeah, I remember. I came to Earth, and oh wow, it was weird. I was like, and they step out of it, But it's a very unique, powerful. They just said it's more likely for younger souls that haven't had this experience. Older souls tend to be like, oh yeah, I remember this, I'm out of here. Younger souls are like, can be very taken in by all of it and really get lost in the matrix and and buy into everything heavily. But it's not a thing that happens all the time. Most people, like when they're just hanging around for family, and they like it, and it's fun, and they're at such peace, and they're so happy, and they go and play, and they come back and check on the Earth, and they're kind of, that's the astral plane, right? They're kind of there and here. They're kind of a mixed bag to check on family, but they're happy, and they're I've explained many times the kind of realities, or the intentional reality that they've set up for themselves. Some people are on the beach, and some people are sitting by the lake, and some people are in a living room that looked like their living room in the 70s, and some people are hanging out with us, and they show up to our movie nights every week. That's most spirits. There are some, though, that are kind of locked in because they had a very intense or a very sudden death, but I feel like they want us to get away from the movies. And like, it's not like that. And it's they don't want you to be scared. They don't want you to be afraid of stuff. When you have an intense experience, or a a weird experience or something, I always say to get curious. Get curious about it. Go into it and try to feel more deeply into it. Because what happens is something will happen and we'll just, and go to that worst movie we've ever seen about evil spirits. And really that's it so often. I mean, I've done this so many times at this point, that when I move into something, I recognize it. It's like, oh, feels like guilt. This person feels guilty about something. But when you are most of the time at a higher vibration, when you hit those walls of those lower vibrations, it can be a little bit like, whoa, what's going on here? But when you feel into it, it's like, oh, I feel like this person had a lot of depression in their lifetime. So get curious and feel into it, and then you'll feel something familiar usually that will tell you something about them or about the situation. But I feel like there's a big emphasis right now and I think it has to do with the ascension. I think it has to do with awakening, is that there's a real emphasis right now on, we don't want you to be afraid of the divine anymore. We don't want you to be afraid of dying anymore. And I feel like that's why you're seeing, like what I do with orbs, you're seeing, tons and tons of NDEs, tons of out-of-body experiences, tons of astral travel experiences. The veil's getting thin. But I believe, at least from my own experience with my guides and things that they've said, it's thinning because our vibration is raising, right? That's one reason. Science and the paranormal are starting to mix, and so there'll be easier access for everybody, even people that don't have abilities, and it's part of our evolution to stop being afraid of death. Maybe we won't know everything about it, and everything about everything while we're still here, but at least they don't want us to be afraid. It's part of our evolution to stop, to kind of not end fear, but being able to sort of control fear, knowing that it's a mind-made thing. It's not real. It's a mind-made thing, fear is. And so they want us to move out of that, and it makes sense, right? Because we're moving away from ego, and fear is connected to the ego. So I hope that all makes sense to you. And we're just over the hour, so I think we're going to leave it there. If you would like a psychic reading, I do have some. If you want to be in the class that starts not this Monday, but next Monday in the orb class, I have a couple of spots. If you want to do it, just let me know and I'll send you the information and you can decide if you want to join. The Orb Lab classes have been amazing, at least for me. I can't speak for everybody, but the footage people are getting, and that's why it's an Orb Lab, because we look at everybody's footage, and it has been fascinating. And just like people, the interactions, the stuff that comes through, it's very individual. It's so fascinating. So that is available. I do have my classes that are recorded classes. I have a bunch of those. I'm working on one right now about life purpose. Sort of a spiritual path to finding your life purpose. So I hope it'll be a different take and it'll be kind of helpful. What else? If you're interested in mentoring again, let me know. I haven't thought about that, but if you are, I can let me know if that's something like, yes, if you did mentoring appointments, I would be interested in that. Just seeing what's going on there. So, because I kind of feel a pull towards that, but my things are always changing, right? And I've only done readings up until February because I feel like I think I might be doing something different in the spring. So, thank you, Carol. And Carol's going to be doing, Carol is continuing the orb group because they want to get together every I don't know, a couple months or every month and share footage still. So that's kind of neat. And I'll let people know, Carol, in the next group that you're doing that. Okay. All right, thank you. Oh, Kelly, okay, yes to mentoring. All right, yeah, just let me know. Let me know in the comments, or you can send me an email if that's something you're interested in. They used to be just like a half hour. They were on Zoom, and we would just talk about like what was happening, what you were trying to do, or try and accomplish, what may be blocking, what may be happening if you're, stuff like that, about guides, about angels, things like that. So let me know. Yeah, so let me know, okay? I hope everybody has a great Sunday. I will see you Thursday. I'd love to know, too, what you guys think about that show. It's really been interesting for me, and thank you so much for allowing me to do it, because it's part of my own growth, and I know I won't be perfect at it. I know, some will be better than others because but I really appreciate you being there for me while I kind of work through my fear of mediumship, and it's okay to have fears about things. The main thing is that you don't let it stop you from doing stuff or doing things you really want to try, things you're really interested in. Okay. All right, everybody, have a great one, and I'll see you guys Thursday. Take care. Everyone have a good one. Oh, another thing, don't forget to subscribe. I always forget to mention this because I've gotten a couple people recently who are like, I'm not getting the notifications like I was, and for some reason they were bumped off. So just go ahead and subscribe and make sure your subscription is there. And if you feel like there's people that would like this channel or would benefit, let them know. All right, take care, everyone. Have a good one.